Hello, my name's Annette with Sunbeam Fabric Art. Welcome to my channel. Today is my third layer cake series that I've been working on. I've got a ton of layer cakes in my stash that I need to clear out. This one is going to be a quick and easy block. Now this block in my encyclopedia, it's called Block in a Box, and we'll talk about that in just a second. The beautiful thing about this block is once it's together and once it's trimmed to size, there's no matching anything on the sides, just the blocks. And if you want a quick and easy quilt, you want one that you don't have to match much of anything. Here's what this block looks like in my encyclopedia. The only change I'm making to this block is to move that center square up and to the left a little bit, so it's off center. Here is how I'm cutting my 10-inch blocks. I'm cutting a 5-inch strip, so cutting my 10-inch block in half, and then I'm dividing that 5-inch by 10-inch strip into a 4-inch segment, a 1-inch segment, and a 5-inch segment. The remaining 5 by 10-inch rectangle is cut into a 1-inch strip and a 4-inch strip. For my quilt, I'm using lights and darks, so I've already divided some 10-inch squares into lights and darks. These plaids are dark, and then I have some other fabrics that I consider light. For cutting, I'm putting two of these together, a light and a dark. Following my cutting guide, I'm going to make two vertical cuts. I'm going to make a 4-inch and a 1-inch cut, so I'll have a 4-inch by 10-inch strip, a 1-inch by 10-inch strip, and a 5-inch by 10-inch strip. I set the 4 and the 1-inch strips aside, and then I turn the 5-inch strip to cut a 4-inch cut and a 1-inch cut. To assemble this block, lay it out as shown. We're going to put the 1-inch strip on the other side of the 5-inch strip, and then flip the 5 by 5-inch square so the dark is in the middle of the light fabrics and the light will be in the middle of the dark fabrics. Now I'm stacking up my lights and darks here, as many as I feel comfortable cutting at one time, but I'm going ahead and pre-dividing them, stacking them, alternating light and dark, so when it's time to go to the sewing machine, they're ready to go. If you were using two identical colors, like red and white for example, you could just flip these 5 by 5-inch squares over, but since mine vary, I'm going through two at a time and switching the light and the dark so that I can just take this right to the sewing machine. Because of these odd sizes, I'm going to be able to chain piece the 5-inch to the 1-inch. Then I'm going to be able to flip the whole thing around and chain the 4-inch back to the 5-inch on the other side. So let's get started chain piecing the 5 by 5-inch square to the 1-inch by 5-inch strip, and we'll place those right sides together. And I'm stitching a 1/4 inch seam. Once I reach the end of that first chain, I'm flipping the whole thing around, and then I'm going to start chaining that 4-inch by 5-inch piece to the other side of the 5-inch square. And since I flipped this around, I'm starting at the bottom of the stack, so I'm taking this 4-inch stack and I'm turning it over. I'll leave a link in the description for my Blade Saver product. It is a lifesaver when you are dividing up chained piecing. Now, I did not iron the strips that I just put together. If you feel like you need to, go ahead. My fabric was thin enough I could just finger press it. We're going to do the exact same thing. First, we're going to attach the 1-inch strip to the side. Then we're going to flip the whole thing around and attach the 4-inch strip to the other side. But I'm going to chain piece again both ways. And again, I reached the end of the 1-inch strips, I flipped the whole thing around and started chaining the 4-inch strip onto the other side. Now it's a little trickier here to use the Blade Saver because there are 2 threads that are a little bit farther apart, but I had no problem breaking apart both of those threads with this product. Now it's time to press these blocks. I simply fold back 1 row, press it, and then I fold back that 1-inch row and press it. Once all my blocks were pressed, it was time to trim. With the 5-inch square in the upper right hand corner, I am trimming to add a 3/4 inch border around that 5-inch block. So I'm trimming this at 3/4 of an inch above the 5-inch square and to the right of the 5-inch square. Now I cut these layer cakes myself out of shirts, so they weren't all perfect. I ended up trimming these blocks to 8 3/4 inches, and that's because my cutting of the layer cakes was not done properly. Check your own cutting, check your own layer cakes, whatever you're using. Technically, this should come out to a 9-inch block. And don't forget to change your blade when you need to. Now my original layout idea, I was just going to go light, dark, light, dark, light, 5 squares wide and 6 squares long. I found out it was a lot easier to lay this out on the floor with my little helper. And then I kind of flipped that 5-inch square around different ways just to see what it would look like. But you can see here I've got light, dark, light, dark, light, and then the next row is dark, light, dark, light, dark. I picked my rows up block by block and put a clip on the top of the row. Now I don't want to get messed up, so I am not chain piecing as I put these rows together. To put row 1 together, I'm taking the left block, taking the second block, which is dark, and I'm just flipping it together like a book, and I'm going to stitch that seam with a 1/4 inch seam. Next, I did the same thing with the 3rd and the 4th block in the row. Next, I added the 5th block to the end of the blocks 3 and 4. To complete the row, I took block 1 and 2 unit and then I stitched that together with the block 3, 4, 5 unit. I put a clip on the top of the row on the left side. Didn't really need to do that because these rows are going dark, light, dark, light, dark, and then the next row is the opposite color, so it's pretty easy to keep straight. Once I had all 6 rows complete, I took row 1 and 2 first. I stretched out row 1 across my table, then I stretched out row 2 somewhat below it and flipped it up onto row 1, right sides together. My next step is to nest the 4 seams, and I am going to make sure these seams are going opposite ways, and by feel I'm going to merge these seams together so they nest or hook or catch or lock, whatever you want to call it. Once that's done, I put a clip on it to hold it in place till I can get to the sewing machine. My next step was to join row 3 and 4 together in the same way. Then I joined row 5 and 6 together in the same way. Next, I joined the row 3, 4 unit together with the row 5, 6 unit. And last, I joined this unit with the row 1 and 2 unit to complete the quilt top. This quilt idea is so versatile, it can be made in many different fabrics, many different colors. To let you know, my quilt in this size took me 3 hours to complete, and that is it from start to finish. Thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you had fun, and I hope to see you back again real soon.